Kia ora, and welcome back to another episode of School Briefs, kicking into week 3 of term 3. Liam, how's your week been so far? Are you feeling a bit better? You were battling a bit of a lurg, as many of our teachers were at school as well. You're bouncing back?
Yeah, very much so. I put it down to the very tropical Palmerston North weather. It's
What are you? Waikiki, Hawaii of the...
the Hawaii of Aotearoa. And so no, feeling good actually. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for the care.
No, I'm checking in. I've got my DPs battling it. We're in an open plan shared office, so I keep hiding from them around the corner and saying caring things to them from a distance. But my goodness, it's been a winter, man.
Yeah, my daughter had 4 days off school this week with it, and so I'm bracing myself for my first ever attendance letter. And I'm
Are you going to get sued?
Well, I'm one of those people, and I know it's bad, but it's like, oh, well, you'll probably be fine. Head to school. You can always give me a call if you want to. But she sounded like a horse on the first day, so I thought, well, you can't even pretend to hide that. But then days 2 and 3, she was just worse than she was the day before, and she's not completely over it now. She's kind of got those last bits there. But when I thought, oh, this is now 4 days, she's on track for an attendance letter. And in my head, those letters feel punitive, and it's interesting
Crazy,
having those
in that context.
Thinking about what my daughter's been through this week and thinking, I don't know if those letters are such a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and also, can I just take this opportunity to do a shout out to our educators? One thing I don't think other people recognise in other industries and sectors is the fight that we have on our hands every winter with bugs. You know, the fact that our teachers are quite literally in little incubators with up to 30 young people. It's a great context for catching all of the germs and all of the bugs, and so a big shout out to our educators who are working blooming hard at the moment, but also navigating their way through that, and to the parents, as you say, who are having, how sad that we're in a time and a place where people think twice about keeping their young people, and actually our teachers think twice about staying away from school because they care so deeply about carrying on the teaching and learning. And we've got to remember at the end of the day, we've all got to look after ourselves and each other, including you, Liam, including you.
I'm just glad that we're in an age where those letters get emailed out, because given the cost of postage stamps, having to get through some of those, I mean, they'd really eat into the budget.
And it'd take 2 weeks to arrive to you as well, because there's only about 2 or 3 postage days a week. So we also had a bit of a response, didn't we, this week to we had that what felt like what we thought was a ridiculous announcement from ACT NZ about how we need to treat our young people who are struggling to regulate in the classroom. But it didn't seem like everyone thought that was ridiculous, did it?
Yeah, it's really interesting in a week where we've got spur of the moment policy announcements around MMP, that you see the National Party using crazy ACT Party policy ideas as a way of legitimising them, because we had a really good opportunity as a kind of centre-right party to just be able to dismiss this kind of cartoon view around wanting to increase the ability of teachers to be able to manhandle students.
Wrestle those pesky kids out of the classroom.
But actually, we didn't get that. What we got was the minister going, well, this might not be the right way, but actually at the core there is something there. And that is deeply concerning. And I think another one of those kind of alarm bells around where we might see a second term of this government go, because I think it's clear, not just around comments towards the ACT Party policy, but also how often we are starting to see people like Tom Bennett come out and run workshops.
Yeah, and he's very high profile in a lot of jurisdictions, isn't he? He's been wheeled out. Is it Ireland, where he's just been given an official, I think it's Ireland. Is it Ireland or Scotland? I think it's Ireland. An official position appointment around that behaviour work. But it's I find it deeply saddening, considering we're a country with this incredibly rich history of things like tahitanga and teaching to the Northeast, and the work that we've seen decade on decade about the importance of relationship and the idea that actually relationship and restorative practice and actually deep care for our young people is actually what makes the difference. If students can read the room very quickly about if a teacher wants them there. And one of the things I really worry about these more punitive approaches to behaviour is it just amplifies and exacerbates those very behaviours, because
Yeah, that's right.
young people know if you care about them, want them in the room, and actually want the very best thing for them. And I just think these policies lean into the absolute worst model of authoritarian rather than being a caring, authoritative teacher in the classroom. It feels like a huge step backwards, particularly in the context of Aotearoa, where I feel like, you look at the work of Russell Bishop, Mary Berryman, more recently Melanie V.Y. Couch, and so much, Anne Mill, so much fantastic research coming through about what happens when you care deeply for those young people and refuse to have them out of your classroom.
Yeah, look,
And
I couldn't agree more.
yeah,
We are we are in an environment where
mm,
PB4L is wanting to be discredited by the people involved with this government. And I think it is definitely a kind of baby out with the bathwater, because I think we should
yeah,
be really critical of the fact that we haven't had tier two and tier three supports delivered. But actually, at its core, PB4L is around relational practice and the
mm,
idea of walking away from that. Because everything that Tom Bennett talks about is talking about a punitive approach.
yeah,
And I thought Amy from the press in her article over this weekend did such a good job, because she didn't just respond to what the ACT Party's announcement was. She actually went back over the last 100 years around this kind of circular debate that we end up in
yeah,
around effectively um, punishments for kids who aren't doing the right thing. And she did such a good job that tracking them all back, it does tend to be around winning a political argument as opposed to actually what works in the classroom. And John O'Neill, the amazing John O'Neill, had such a good quote around often these kids are in this position as a mask for poverty and
yeah.
for some of the
Oh,
other barriers
100%.
that have nothing to do with what's going on in
Yeah.
classroom.
Yeah. And the last thing we want is our schools to become mini boot camps. Like the it's not the way forward. And hopefully people can see common sense and see that actually relationships matter and caring for our kids matter and wanting them to stay in the classroom matters. But yeah, it's been an interesting week in terms of announcements of politics. I had a really there was a very busy old week over Wednesday and Thursday for me in secondary land. On Wednesday, I headed along to a locally organised curriculum and assessment workshop. We had Vaughan Quio and Catherine Laws there talking about the Phase 5 subjects and what was in the pipeline for our secondary qualifications. And then, of course, on Thursday, we had the announcements of the industry skills board subjects, those vocational subjects being announced, which I'll come back to in a moment. And then that night had a really interesting evening. Shout out to Louise and Kieran at PPTA for organising a really impressive lineup with a politicians panel here up in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. On Thursday night. So Wednesday and Thursday was a bit of a cracker in terms of educational discussions. And actually, one thing I will touch on, listening to Catherine Laws and Kat talk about curriculum and that Phase 5 curriculum development, I've got to give credit where credit is due. We're very lucky, I think, in the secondary space in that it's far clearer that we've got a whole lot of local expertise leading that Phase 5 curriculum writing.
Gosh.
And I, what a novel idea, you know.
Mm.
the actual people who teach the subjects. For those of you who are not in secondary, we've had a really weird situation for many years where we've had learning area sort of curriculum, but we haven't had the specific subject curriculum. And to be fair, there's been some incredible work done in terms of the curriculum development. But what I really appreciated from both Catherine and Kat in their discussions on Wednesday was just how clear they were about the fact that all they were giving us were the bones for us to localise and contextualise in our local context. And I felt like that message has been missing up until now in the sort of curriculum rollout development. So it was, they acknowledged that some people have said that those curriculum and subject curricula do feel a bit heavy and they feel like they're a bit overloaded. And I think there's work to be done in finding a bit more of maybe a slightly pared back version of some of those subjects that have been rolled out so far. But they were really quick to say, look, how the order in which you teach these, the context in which you teach these, the way that these roll out in your classroom should absolutely be reflective of your schools and your context. And so I was heartened to hear that actually pleased me. And I have to admit, it is nice to see the curriculum coming out well before the assessment framework.
Yeah. So, that's kind of caught me off guard. I genuinely didn't realise that. And if you had asked me to put money on it, I wouldn't have. I'm always interested in kind of celebrating and recognising where educators have managed to get some cut through. Is your sense it was always going to end up in that space? Or do you think it has been those kind of consistent and loud calls from educators for the value of local curriculum and the professional respect and autonomy to be able to deliver these in ways that they know are going to work in their context?
I suspect it might be a bit of that. And I think it comes through in the fact that outdoor education ended up getting across the line and back in. So, I'm not naive. I don't think it's all sunshine and, rainbows, because I've still got deep concerns about the damage that the assessments are going to do, because I actually think that's where it's going to actually do harm. I genuinely think the direction of travel with our NZACE, NZCE is harmful if it continues to roll out in the way that I think it will. But to be fair and to give credit, the curriculum is being developed locally. It's being developed by our local experts, and that shows through. And actually, we need to learn from that in the primary space. The best outcomes are achieved. And of course, we won't all be happy with absolutely everything in there, nor would we ever be with anything new that's rolled out. I still think it's criminal that Te Matahaho isn't at the heart of it, that 2023 version. And that's a fundamental flaw in the whole of the curriculum design. But as far as when we come down to phase 5 subjects, they ain't, people have got views on them. They ain't perfect. Some feel that they're a little bit too Eurocentric. Some feel like they are too full. But there's a lot of potential there, and grateful to be having our local experts leading the work, doing that development, and for the most part getting some good stuff out there, because we don't want teachers just defaulting to assessments for designing their programs. We want them to be using curriculum to design, and that will enable them to do that. But that brings me to the next announcement. No,
just one more question.
Yes.
So in primary and intermediate parts of the curriculum, there has been a very deliberate focus on tying both curriculum and pedagogy together. Do you have the same focus on the science of learning in phase 5?
I think so. No, it's quite interesting. They talked very clearly about the knowledge and practice, and the reason that there was the very clear split between here's the knowledge of the subject, here's the practice of the subject. And for the most part, it kind of made sense. It didn't feel as heavy-handed as maybe it does in the primary school. I don't know. I still believe, as we said last week, I think we need to come back to a separate conversation around effective pedagogy and what that looks like across the board. Because one of the things I'm really getting concerned about is this real pearl clutching stuff that's happening in Australia around screen time and computers and technologies, and schools being held up on high because they've got rid of all of their technology, which is, again, baby out with bathwater stuff.
lunacy and
It's
stuff.
absolutely bonkers. Yeah.
Mm.
We can't turn the back on AI. We can't turn the back of technology, but also we want to make sure that we're creating space and upskilling our teachers to do all of the great offline stuff that we have always done in our classrooms. Like we have always engaged with that direct instruction. Primary teachers have always used elements of structured literacy, as well as
Yeah.
they have in the balance approach. But yeah, I think where the rubber's going to hit the road in secondary, and what I'm still concerned about is where we end up with assessments. Also, really interested in how these industry skills board subjects actually look like when they are more clearly unpacked. It was an interesting announcement. They were sort of held up as brand new subjects, as if we should be going, hallelujah, here's some new subjects. And to be fair, a lot of these is stuff that we've been teaching. Like when you look at things like the hospitality, food and beverage, a lot of schools have got absolutely fantastic hospitality programs. Next gen manufacturing, our hard tech subjects, depending on how they're approaching them, have got real elements of what's being talked about in these new subjects already being offered in their schools. Tourism, a lot of schools have taught tourism and delivered tourism and health, food and fibre systems, engineering technology, energy and infrastructure, construction and built environment. Be interesting to see how that sits alongside what people often do through trades academies at the moment, and applied intelligent systems. I was kind of excited to see a lot of these. Like I looked at them, and if you look at there's the Beehive announcement version of this, and it talks a bit more about gives the subject title, gives the focus, and it gives the benefits. And do you know what warmed the cockles of my heart, Liam?
Gosh, I don't know if people still say the cockles of my heart, but tell us anyway.
They do now.
Okay.
These sound like our bloody impact projects at Albany Senior High School. Like I think about the fact that, we've often been seen as doing something kooky with dedicating a day to a large scale long term impact projects, because it's not a specialist subject, and therefore some people worry that they're not academic. Do you know what our kids do? They do big picture problem solving, design thinking, and agile methodologies. And I look at things like applied intelligence systems, which is part of the creative industry skills board.
Mm-hmm.
And students are taught how to solve business challenges using low or no code technologies to design, deploy, and evaluate AI enabled autonomous workflows and agents. Heck, our kids will cross that stuff.
AI wrote that.
You know?
Hey, what was the deal with some of the names? Because I thought that we were going to go back to like construction, home economics, whereas lots of the names that they've been given seem to be a bit woke.
They're quite lofty, aren't they? Applied intelligence systems, construction and built environment. I like environment being in there. Energy and infrastructure, engineering technology, food and fibre systems, healthcare, health services and care, hospitality, food and beverage. Next gen manufacturing, not just any manufacturing, next gen manufacturing and tourism. So yeah, that they sound loaded full of potential. I've also got concerns about how these equitably roll out around the country, because these don't, you can't, where's the expertise coming from? Who is teaching these? Like if it's our teachers, who's upskilling them? If it's going to get farmed out, be wary. We're a school that does a lot of gateway and a lot of a trades academy type learning. We lose funding when our kids do that. So if you have a kid that's out at trades academy for a day, you lose 0.2 of your funding. So that comes out of your and schools that haven't done that until now may not realise that actually if these are offered by external providers, yes, your kids may or may not be able to opt into them, but that comes out of your school funding as well. So there's a cost to that. Or if you're trying to do this in-house, like we have our schools that do some great trades academies, that needs infrastructure and, resources. Is this going to become a postcode lottery? Are we going to just see big schools or hubs? Or I've got lots of questions. Like it's. Don't get me wrong. I actually think there's some freaking cool stuff that's been rolled out here, but I've got a whole lot of questions about what it's going to look like on the ground and how we're going to ensure every young person has access to these.
And
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 yeah,
I mean, in their defence, I actually don't think that's a new issue. It's
no,
just that they have been silent on the solutions to it because eventually
yeah,
somebody has to solve that. My kind of ongoing concern in the space is the minister's desire to see a two-tier approach to education, particularly in senior secondary.
yeah. We don't
And
want trades colleges opening up.
but I mean, one of the statements, and this isn't a direct quote, but her belief was that there was going to be complete parity around the status of
Yes,
all of these
exams.
subjects.
This, that,
And,
and that's where my concern is about assessment, because I've heard that they want exams for all of these. They want exams for every subject. Just because you can design an exam doesn't mean you frickin' should.
yeah,
It's a very weird focus.
but I mean, I think that in actual fact, she's going to kind of reinforce with this approach the higher status of things like physics and calculus and English, as opposed to the trade subjects that you have just
But
mentioned. And there is no amount of claiming that
the parity,
I
the
will
word
see
parity, I've never
parity
heard parity
in this.
used so
because
much.
because for the life of me, there's no way I can see somebody who is top of food and beverage becoming ducks of the school. The ducks of the school is still going to be coveted by the person doing calculus and physics and English. And
Did you go through? You went through school when there was sixth form certificate, eh?
I was the very last year of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have still never forgiven the universe for the fact that I came top of drama and top of fashion and design, and the top grade that was available to me was a 6. Because accounting and maths and physics got all the ones. Like it was the most bonkers system in the world. It was
I was the same.
absolutely bonkers. Yeah.
From scratch, I did a broccoli and lemon soup served in a bread bowl. I got a 6.
And what did you get? Yeah, yeah.
I got a 6. Yeah.
Criminal. Criminal. Top
That's
of the
right.
class in the
And so,
six.
yeah. No, that's right.
Knowing our place in society.
I think we are going to go back to if this type of approach embeds where actually university is going to be for those people that are smart enough, and it's going to just kind of entrench some of those kind of traditional views that actually we've shifted away from.
Or the other option is that they do try and make these parity and somehow turn them into weird like very academic focused versions, and that shuts out people. So,
Oh, yeah.
that's the other option, is that they get positioned as second tier, or they don't, and they try and turn them into very academic subjects, and actually they lose the purpose of some of these pathways, which is kids that are engaged by getting their hands dirty, hands on, getting out there and doing the practical stuff. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Obviously, as a school leader in secondary space, I'm going to be watching this very, very closely. But yeah,
Just changing topics though, you mentioned earlier that you were at that PPTA debate.
yeah, yeah.
Very keen to hear any of your reflections because they cruelly didn't live stream it. So anyone
No, no.
outside of Auckland, we're just sitting at home on a WhatsApp
I
group
know, just
waiting
going,
for kind of
what's
updates.
happening? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I'll give you my very scientific summary. So, again, kudos to Kieran and Louise and the whole PPTA team for pulling it off, because I think getting every single party on the stage and there, and to be fair, even our minister fronting up to a union heavy audience was pretty dang impressive on a cold, very cold Thursday evening up here in Auckland. Interesting. It wasn't a debate. It was, Sean Ackland was there as the MC. It was a bit of a waste of his talents because he did little more than introduce
The
and
process.
ask a question and told off people for heckling, because we weren't allowed to heckle. There was a couple of people next to me that were most poorly behaved. Won't
Mm.
name names. I was very well behaved. I was very controlled.
Linda knows who she is.
Yeah. But no, it was interesting. It was great to have an event where absolutely everyone fronted up. It was a really interesting sort of entree of what we might see in the election season in terms of education. I'm a little bit worried that education is not a priority for our parties across the board. That sort of feeling came through because all of these people who should have been across all of their educational messages, it was pretty tepid for the most part. But here's my rundown, my official scoring for the night. So, first up, Lawrence. I have to say, he was the winner on the night. Lawrence Yunnan was phenomenal. He was on top of his game. He's a stunning orator. He knew the audience he was talking to. He spoke to a secondary union audience very specifically, but he's also very much across the issues and what's concerning teachers. He's a real listener, and he's both a listener and he's a reader. He reads policies backwards, forwards, sideways, and that comes through because he can just talk and he can hit the mark and had really clear messages. You got the sense that the Greens were trying to push for being a really caring, respectful of educators, respectful of our young people, respectful of Te Tiriti, and he knocked it out of the park in my mind in terms of his messaging on the night. Ginny was a close second. Ginny Anderson speaking for Labour. She came through. She warmed up as the evening went on. She initially spoke possibly a little bit too much to the primary curriculum just because of the crowd. I would have probably, the question was about secondary curriculum and assessment, and it could have been more focused on that, a bit more laser focused. But she came through stronger as the evening went on. So she talked about respecting teachers. She talked about Te Tiriti being recentered. She talked about building on what's good from the reforms, but actually coming back to what we actually need and finding that middle ground. So I thought her messaging was pretty strong, but Lawrence had pip her just because he was just so bang bang. Quile was really interesting from the Opportunity Party. I've got I worry about what the Opportunity Party might do to the voting, and they are up front. They would go left or right, and she had some good measured comments about respecting educators. She sort of said all the right things, but what came through in her messaging is sort of what comes through with Opportunity is that they're so busy trying to prove that they can go either way and see both sides of the issue that they end up saying nothing, if that makes sense. Yeah. But she does it very well. She's a great orator. She's like, you can't help but like her. I sort of go, oh, I'd like to go sit and have a cocktail with Quile. She's a cool lady. Like she's got that quality about her where she comes across as intelligent, articulate, and measured. But I'm still not convinced that such a centrist sort of messaging can actually serve either side particularly well. I don't know. So she was interesting. Hana. So we had Hana from Te Pāti Māori. Gosh, she's a great orator. She's got presence and just like, she was so popular. Like people were so happy to see you. I think she got cheers the moment that she stood up. She's, admired from across the board in terms of what she stands up. And she made a hilarious comment about behaviour, and actually maybe we need to check the behaviour of our politicians first before we worry about the behaviour of our students. So that won people over. I thought she missed a beat. I sat there and I went, gosh, I feel like someone needs to give her some support in the background. She could talk quite comfortably about kura kaupapa, Māori schools and the strength of those and how well young Māori perform in those environments. She got asked a question about behaviour in response to the ACT policy announcement. And I sat there going, gosh, there is so much historical, like takotahitanga, the stuff of Berryman and Bishop and Melanie Riwai Couch's stuff, and that historical sort of that's celebrated around the world, that sort of Māori worldview of relationships and that being at the heart. And I sort of thought, oh, she could have actually kicked this out of the park, hit this out of the park, had she just got some referencing to what's gone on before and the research even in the English medium space that supports that Māori, te ao Māori worldviews and how powerful that can be when it comes to behaviour. So I felt like someone needs to be supporting her and give her a few more of those researchers, evidence, just to really power up. And then this is where it gets really quite entertaining. We had Laura from where's Laura? Laura is Act Party. She isn't she?
Yeah.
She didn't say a lot. She was an interesting character. She sort of she tried to defer to Lawrence and agreeing with Lawrence and Ginny on points, and then said not much at all. So she's an interesting character. There wasn't a lot of messaging there. I found Andy Foster from New Zealand First highly entertaining. I think he forgot he was there as NZ First. I think we had Andy Foster, the old Wellington mayor, because he was a man of the people, and he kept deferring to Lawrence. And I went I think the first thing I said to Linda after the thing, I went, did someone forget to tell him he's in New Zealand First? He kept pointing to Lawrence and making Lawrence type comments. So he steered clear of.
Given what Winston Peters and his racist comments towards Lawrence.
I know, and supposedly Lawrence and Andy get on really well. I mean, I guess because Andy has been the mayor of Wellington, he is a bit of a man of the people type dude, so he steered clear of any sort of, at least the way I heard it, it felt like he steered clear of any real NZ First type rhetoric. So we didn't have anything about, gender definitions or anything like that. And actually deferred and acknowledged some of the stuff that Lawrence said. So that was quite interesting. I think he forgot what party he was in. And then, of course, we had our minister. And to be fair on the minister, you've got to admire someone who is so dang consistent. She is an communicator. She's a great communicator. She is incredibly clear about her messaging. Her strategy is to say the same thing again and again and again. Come out, tell everyone all of the stuff that you've done. A lot of I's and my's in that statement. She did get a bit heckled, and the audience got told off for heckling her. I think she made a throwaway comment about if you don't like the senior secondary curriculum, you've only got your own teachers to blame. And it was like, where did that come from? I was just like, I don't feel like anyone had critiqued that, but it was sort of like, it was a really interesting thing to throw at a secondary audience. Yeah. And then she sort of came back from that and went back to her messaging. So, interesting comments around education being a korowai and claims that there are more te reo words than ever in our curriculum document. I mean, when you remove so many te tiriti and you remove so many concepts as in te mātaiaho, I don't know if you can claim that a word count is the same as honouring te tiriti and understanding what it means to have te ao Māori and at the heart of our bicultural honouring curriculum. I don't know. It was interesting. But she's nothing if not confident and got her messages. She got her messages across, no question.
Don't forget, though, that on Q&A, she told Jack Taylor that she's the Minister of Education that's done the most for Māori. Full stop. So
I often wonder, our school's going through a lot at the moment. I'm going through a lot of our moment. And you often take time to take stock of going, I think everyone must do what they're doing with the belief that they're doing the right thing. I don't know if anyone goes to bed at night wanting to do the wrong thing. I just find it really interesting. Do these ministers sit in their office and genuinely say genuinely believe the ideas that they're rolling out is going to be the best thing for our young people? I don't know. It's interesting.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things I've been grappling with lately is a level of frustration around people who have worked in the ministry for a long period of time across multiple governments, and their kind of opening line is that we're all here for the same thing. We want the very best for kids.
Yeah,
I don't know how you can, if you want what is best for the kids, I don't know how you can go from national standards to localized curriculum and then go to national testing and consistently believe that you're doing the right
But do you
thing
have
for
short
kids.
memories? Or
Yeah.
do people like goldfish? Do they
And so,
did
yeah,
have they had their caches cleared and forgotten what happened?
and so
It's yeah,
and so
like and
it is always hard to kind of understand the motivations
yeah,
of people, but I mean, I think that you can actually start to call some of these claims into question when their kind of actions can demonstrably
yeah.
um, not line up with what they say their goal is around wanting the best for kids, because in actual fact, their goals suggest that they are there to do whatever
I
the Minister of Education tells them to.
Yeah, and I also worry when there's a real hesitation to listen to diverse perspectives. Like as I say, I often cite, you know, how much I miss Nikki Kay, because she was someone who we had held really quite significantly different political views, but she was someone who I sat down with and thought, no, we want the same thing. We just have different different ideas about how you get to the same thing. But
Yeah.
she also wanted to hear my ideas because she knew that there was value in those ideas as well. And I've always tried to I don't think everything that the minister's done is bad.
Mhm.
But I also don't think my biggest ask for at the end of the day is pluralism. You know, the fact that actually there's space for all of our approaches. I absolutely respect Tim O'Connor and his approach at Auckland Grammar School, and I'd hope that he respects that I do what I do at Albany Senior High School, because we're each working to our very specific context. I'm a senior school with only year 11s to 13s. He's a very traditional grammar school that, you know, people choose to go there because they like the way that he does, you know, that school does things. But I worry that we've got a system that's trying to say that there's only one of those ways to do things, rather than actually
Um,
respecting that there's multiple ways. There's there's many strategies and many. And I've become quite philosophical these last couple of weeks, Liam.
no, to be
This could
honest,
go on for about 2 hours. I've been
I'm
thinking
just
deeply.
more looking at the time, because depending on what you mean, I might actually disagree, which again is fine.
Yeah,
We can, because one of the things um that really struck me traveling as much as I did when I was president of NZI Aotearoa
yeah,
was actually how small New Zealand is,
yeah,
and actually given the level of disconnection within our education sector, I just don't know how you can kind of justify that in a population of 5 million.
yeah,
Um, and obviously, I'm at the wrong end of a Minister of Education who's very keen to kind of mandate and tell people what to do.
yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, yeah, I like a lot of what you just said. Um, but in terms of kind of on the ground change, I'm really interested in this idea of what should be centralised and what should be decentralised. And maybe that's where I differ from the Minister of Education. I think I'd probably centralise the opposite things to the things that she's done, because I
Mm,
probably do want a diversity of approaches at local levels of schools. But yeah,
so do I.
I'm looking at the time and I worry
Yeah.
that,
Oh, yeah. And so we just really want to quickly say, come to the launch of our report. When is
yeah, but
that,
yeah,
Liam?
what if people can't afford the tickets?
But the tickets are
Oh
free,
my
and you get
God, that's
breakfast.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
such a good deal. Have we got a deal for you? There may even be steak knives and a shiny poster. Um, come along, friends. Bring your senior leadership. See who you can get out the door. I know it's 8:30 isn't the best time for all of our teachers, but those of you who are in leadership and got a bit of flexibility, those of you who are our friends and professional development providers, our friends sitting at the ministry. I know you secretly watch this on silent in the corner of the office.
That's right. We'll
Come
see.
along. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah.
Aero, we want you there. NZQA, all of our friends and partners. No, please, genuine invitation to absolutely everyone. 20th of August, 8:30 a.m. University of Auckland. Aotearoa Educators Collective is launching its report about a vision for education in Aotearoa. aim to be a completely non-partisan. This isn't political. This isn't about which government's in and which government's out. This is about what we hold dear. This is our die-in-the-ditch vision for what every young person needs and deserves in Aotearoa. And we'd love to see you there over some pastries. Liam, you're even coming up from Hawaii.
Wouldn't miss it. No. You have to pack a jacket. Hey, thanks heaps, Claire. Have a really good week. We'll talk later.
You too. Yeah, happy week 3, everyone, and look after yourselves, particularly if you got the sniffles, okay? Don't hesitate to take the time if you need it. I can write you a note. Ka kite.